There's a lot of disputes today about what actual facts are. We see many terms being commonly used like fact-checking and alternative facts. One of America's big problems is that the media, the gateway to information about what is going on around the world, can control what we think of as factual information, and the media is very divided. We have the corporate media, huge companies like CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Fox, Washington Post, New York Times, etc. These companies usually push a certain narrative in what they report and don't report. Even Fox News, usually the more conservative or Republican side of the media, sometimes unites with the left-leaning corporate media. And we would expect this to happen very often in a society where the media is unbiased and reports on the basic events happening in the world. But the degree to which different organizations include, exclude, and spin stories has become very large depending on the organization. There are many independent media groups present now, small companies and individual journalists, people who publish the other side of the story or events that mainstream media will not touch. These independent groups are often more right-leaning or centrist, although there are left-leaning individuals and small companies as well. The crazy divide in the country is often apparent when one looks at the sources that each person trusts. The mainstream media, or MSM, is often the go-to source for many leftists, who put their trust in organizations that have been around for many years and have Pulitzer Prizes. Right-leaning people tend to distrust the mainstream media for several reasons. The fact that the companies may have been around for a long time is negated by the infiltration of these organizations by Operation Mockingbird CIA members such as Mika Brzezinski. Many people do not trust the left-leaning journalists, reporters, and funding sources for the MSM, believing them to be set up by the intelligence community to push a certain narrative. These companies have been caught rigging scenes, repeatedly citing anonymous sources, hiring people from or with direct ties to the federal, writing headlines and articles that misrepresent the stories, constantly pushing identity politics, and using words in a disingenuous way to change their meaning in the public sphere and causing me to start this channel. The leftists that do support and use these sources also further deters right-leaning people from trusting the media, as they are often affiliated with or support groups funded by George Soros. Right-leaning media organizations have their faults as well, as some such as InfoWars or other more individual journalists tend to sensationalize and may report on something too fast, incorrectly capturing the context of the situation. They also have less insider or press access to certain events and may have to rely on a chain of sources. However, they can get easily into other more public events and report on scene without a large crew. While these people may have less funding or lower quality production value, they also tend to report on issues that the MSM will not touch, particularly organizations like Judicial Watch and Disobedient Media, which research the actions of the government, individuals, and agencies which have not been transparent with the people and who may be receiving protection from transparency by the federal government or mainstream media. Unfortunately, these individuals are now labeled as alternative media for reporting things that go against the official narrative. These people and events is all entered into a huge historical timeline documented mainly online these days. It can take time and patience to search through all the articles and videos on certain topics to get a real sense of what happened in any particular event. For example, let's examine the idea of radical Islamic terrorism. This is one issue that makes it easy to see where a particular media organization falls on the political scale, depending on how it treats this topic. Many news organizations have addressed this issue with increasing frequency throughout the 21st century, although the spin they give it varies. The MSM usually avoids reporting on Islamic attacks, if possible, or only issue articles about the events. Their narrative is often that an attack occurred, but the identity of the attacker may be covered or spun, so as to not invoke the idea that the attacker committed a crime in the name of Islam. The narrative is that, despite the huge influx of Muslims or Middle Eastern and African migrants into Europe, everyone is assimilating smoothly and there are few problems among the citizens of Europe and the newcomers. They will try to leave out information about the situation, saying, "Oh, we don't know the intentions," or give other excuses. Unfortunately, this has now become fact for the political left, that Islam is peaceful and that anything bad is done either by ISIS or by crazy lone attackers, although they still accept allowing more migrants into these countries. The political right is much more critical of Islam. Their news organizations make sure to report on every act of terror committed in Europe and occasionally jump to conclusions about the attacks. They make sure to get the news out about every incident and are quick to blame either ISIS, their affiliates, or other radicalized Muslims. They are very critical of the waves of migration into Europe and often bring up the stated intentions of radical Muslim speakers or statistics on bombing and attacks committed by Muslims all over the world. The threat of Islamic terror and the expansion of these regimes is fact that the political right addresses, and they often talk about expelling migrants, ending social programs for them, or even attacking and pushing them back into the Middle East or completely out of existence. There is a massive amount of push from both directions about this issue, one side claiming that the West is too harsh on Muslims, one side claiming that it's not harsh enough. There are articles, interviews, videos, statistics, stories, government documents, opinion pieces, and more from people all over the world. The problem with all of these facts is that often they are taken in a certain context that might not be conveyed or completely understood. While we are continuing with the radical Islamic terror example, remember that this lesson can be applied to anything else, whether it's the economy, the environment, deciding what car to buy, that boyfriend, everything must be taken in context. While many of us have met very nice Muslim people in the US, or talked to some friends from Europe, or seen an article about a new program in Sweden for migrant children, it would seem that all is well. Or we may have watched a YouTube video of thousands of migrants pouring into a small French village, statistics from Germany, or counted off truck or bomb attacks on our fingers. We must always take into account where the information is coming from and not rely on single sources. It is easy to stage or commit false flag attacks to push a certain narrative or to manipulate emotions to induce fear, sadness, or empathy about a topic. A good example of this would be the nerve gas that never happened, or the extreme rigging of polls, eliciting emotions and false ideas in populations that don't have enough insight or critical thinking skills to know the difference. One of the most disingenuous things that has been done with facts regarding Islamic terror is the misrepresentation of statistics. It is hard to get an accurate idea of how much sympathy or defense is necessary when different sources report different numbers of people who have entered these countries, different crime rates, different ethnicities, different affiliations or motivations. It's frustrating when increasing reports of rape are disregarded as accidents due to cultural barriers, or murders are not due to unknown intentions, or birth rates are ignored due to racial bias. It's also frustrating trying to find out information about the events that happen overseas and get real views at the cultures and how they think and act in their home countries versus the people we meet in the West. It can be even more frustrating when one source is labeled as fact and when it ignores important factors, or when serious concerns are labeled as debunked because the MSM said so. Simply the widespread, though thankfully decreasing, trust in the MSM can help these organizations spread half-truths and corrupt the meaning of the word fact by putting their funding and power behind it. How are we supposed to know the truth about the world and act in our own best interest when we know nothing of the inside deals and the things that our governments are involved in, which will affect our lives? Well, we aren't, and to believe in these things is now considered alternative facts, according to the people who want to completely control the narrative and demonize citizens as conspiracy theorists for wanting transparent governments and to hold people accountable for their lies and crimes. Real facts are independent of spin. To truly know the facts behind any situation, you must verify them and look for a range of sources. It's quite a challenge during this age to know if your eyes are being fooled by Photoshop or a cunning video clip, or to know how to recognize context that's left out of a graph or headline, or to become familiar with it so that you can resist being deceived by setups, breaking news, and inside information. We all want to be aware of what's going on, so practice critical thinking about each topic or news story, and don't claim to know the facts about a situation if you don't truly know them. We're all in a box of our own reality, and we're very good at giving others control over it.